The reason why we're doing this is currently in Oregon, just about half of all abortions are funded by taxpayers. That looks like about 11 abortions every day. And in the last fiscal year, 2011-2012, there are almost 4,200 abortions funded by taxpayers. The average is about 4,000 per year if you look at the last 10 years. And how does this work? It all works through the Oregon Health Plan. So the reality is if someone is on the Oregon Health Plan and they're pregnant, they can really there's no limit to the number of abortions that an individual can get with the Oregon Health Plan. So there's no restrictions whatsoever. Okay? So this is, they're free to that person getting the abortion, but not free to the taxpayer. So we're footing the bill for this. And what that looks like over the last 10 years, we have funded exactly 38,455 abortions. And that's fiscal year like 02-03 to 2011-2012. This information, we've got some data on the table over there. This comes straight from the Oregon Health Authority. We got this information by just putting in a data request. This is kind of a challenge with this initiative. Most people aren't aware that this is happening. Certainly, it's not being talked about generally. You might hear things about funding abortion, but you don't really know how it's happening and kind of the direct mechanisms for tracking it. Well, we know, it's not a mystery, that if you have an Oregon Health Plan card and you go into an abortion clinic and you get a free abortion, that abortion clinic just bills the state. So it's really trackable. This is not mysterious about how the money is moving. It's just one transaction, bill the state. Okay? And that's how we have this information. So on our website, if you go to Oregon2014.org and the materials in your envelope have that website address, it's going to look like this. If you click on the link that has in the red oval, it says Abortion Funding Facts. Click on that and you'll get to this page, which the big red arrow is pointing to the document that is the actual PDF that we received from the Oregon Health Authority. Okay, so it's undoctored, which is why it's really ugly. It's just a document that says here's exactly how many abortions have been funded through the Oregon Health Plan. So you can go to our website, you can download that, you can share it with people. We need to get this information out because nobody else is talking about this, like I said. We get criticism from, we really try to be active on Facebook, and we're growing our Facebook awareness. And we get people who come on there and say, send me something that isn't on your page. Like, I want to confirm this. And we're like, where? It's not out there. You can go to the Oregon Health Authority and ask for the same information we did, though. So anyway, we want to get this document out to the people. And so go to the website and check that out. So before I move on from this slide, I want to just take a moment and tell you, like, personally, why this is important to me. Now, I a small business owner. I have 3 young daughters. I pay taxes, as most of you probably do. And if you're self-employed like I am, you pay taxes most likely every quarter. So I write a check to the state and to the federal IRS every 3 months. And when I found out, it was probably about 4 years ago. So I was sitting in a board meeting. I'm on the board of directors with our local pregnancy resource center. I was sitting in a board meeting, and it was just sort of casually mentioned by someone that would pay for abortion for the state, for taxes. And I had heard that, different times in my life, but never really thought about it. And so, but I remember being impacted that day. And I remember writing it down on a piece of paper. And I went home and I said, I got to figure out why this is happening. Like, how is it happening? And if it is happening, why isn't the Christian community and those who value life in general, why aren't we rising up to do something about this? And so I spent many months doing research, talking to anyone I could. I met with Gail Atterbury, Oregon Right to Life. I called anybody and everybody that I feel like I could try to get some information about this. And did a lot of searching online, didn't find a lot. But the information that I did find, and from that kind of has been building, is what we're looking at on this page. So there's sources for everything that we have on here. one of the things that is actually kind of fascinating that I discovered in my research was that this issue was on the Oregon ballot in 1986. Does anybody remember it? I was in the 4th grade, so I certainly didn't. Okay? Yeah, it was. And when I found it, I was like, wow, this is like amazing. Like, so we had an idea, let's put this on the ballot. And then we found that it was tried 25 years ago, 27 years ago. And so at least that kind of gave me hope that somebody cared enough to try it, right? Now, a lot has happened in 25, 27 years. You know, the advent of ultrasound, just general public awareness about the issue. That when it was on the ballot in '86, it failed by a measure. It was like 45% to 55%. So it wasn't like a drastic thing. But you know, we've done our own polling, and we know from the heightened awareness in the last 27 years, and especially with Obamacare and things that people talking about abortion funding, we know that the majority of Oregonians and the majority of Americans do not want taxpayer-funded abortion. People, and this might surprise some of you, because I'm assuming most of you are pro-life, kind of, you know, of some faith community. I don't know where everyone's at, but there are people who sign our petition willingly who are pro-choice. Does that surprise anybody?
No.
You know, when someone first came up to me and said, and they volunteered, they're like, I'm pro-choice and I'm going to sign this. And so, you know, you have to ask, well, why? Tell me about that. There's a lot of libertarians in the state. These are people who may think it's okay to have access to abortion, but they don't want to pay for it. Okay? So that's the distinction there. And so when we go out and about and we're getting signatures, you know, you won't see anything on our website about this being pro-life. Because even though it's pro-life to me, it's not pro-life to necessarily everybody who's supporting this. And especially when we get it on the ballot, this is not going to be a pro-life thing. This is a pro-freedom thing. Okay? Let us do what we want with our own money. Okay? Let's get the government out of this extremely controversial procedure. So, anyway, just a little bit of background about how this all came about. Was anyone involved in the 2012 effort? Quite a few of you. So, first of all, thank you. That was a big deal. You know, we tried to get this on the ballot 2 years ago. Well, it was last year, but for the 2012 ballot, and we didn't succeed, but we did a lot of really good things. And one of the things that we did was that we collected 70,000 signatures. So that was pretty cool. We did it just with volunteers, and we did it in less than 6 months. And keep in mind, this is all kind of birthed from this little ragtag group of guys in Corvallis, right? We didn't have any contacts, we didn't have any money, we didn't have any organizations behind this. We just kind of got it started. We came down to Medford at least once or twice to talk about it. This is by far a bigger crowd than what we had the last time we were here. But so what we're doing is we're building upon what we got going last year. So we had 2,500 people collect signatures last year, and that's, you know, ranging from 2 signatures to like 670 or 80. And there's a couple people in this room that were our top 5 signature gatherers in the entire state. So 2,500 people and about 300 churches were involved at some level. Now, most of those churches could have probably stepped up their game a little bit and like actually tried, but at least there was receptivity, right, and some acceptance. So what we need to do for 2014 is we need to essentially double what we did last year. So if we could in 6 months accomplish what we did, I have high optimism that we can get this done this time. So for one reason, we have quite a bit more time than we had last year. Even from today, we have about 9 months to get the job done. We've already received about 10,000 signatures for the 2014 effort. Because those 70,000 that signed last year, that doesn't count. Okay, we have to start everything over. But we're not starting over with awareness and people who care about this thing. You know, like I said, when we started, we didn't have anybody. We've got a mailing list of about 5,000 people now. And we have 5,000 email addresses. We didn't have any of that when we started. So we're kind of just trying to build upon what we got going. Okay, so what do we need? This little chart really kind of describes really the big picture of everything. Okay? So on one hand, we have signature gathering. We need people to gather signatures. There's 150,000. Then we need financial resources. So as a nonprofit, we're not technically a nonprofit. We're a petition committee. So donations are not tax deductible. There's no tax credit. I'm sorry, I can't offer that. But every dollar that goes to this thing goes back into it. Okay, so I'm certainly not getting paid, and nobody who's collecting signatures is getting paid. So we have those two needs: 150,000 signatures, and we don't normally tell people, but we need about $150,000. Okay, so those are the two big needs. The budget. The reason how we came up with $150,000 for the budget. Last year, when we collected 70,000 signatures, we received about $70,000 in donations to get there. Okay? And that's cash and material donations. Like we had our office space donated to us. So anyway, it was about $1 a signature using volunteers. Kind of crazy, kind of a big deal. It's actually pretty cheap if you look at the big, what other initiatives are doing. If you look at last year, the initiatives that qualified for the ballot last year, I would say the average, I've looked at about 4 that qualified for last year's ballot. The average money that was spent just to get on the ballot, not to promote it or anything like that, just to get on the ballot was about $400,000. Okay, so our $150,000 is actually pretty cheap, and we're doing it as efficiently as possible. So we're spending money on a lot of postage. When we have some different strategies that I don't need to get into right now, but if you could imagine us mailing petition sheets to those 70,000 people who signed last year, that in itself is going to cost about $35,000. Okay, so you can see how the money really kind of can add up. Okay, so but then you have those two big things, and then underneath it we have prayer. And prayer is a really important part of this work. We like I said, I don't know where everyone's at in this room spiritually, but we know that this is a spiritual battle. We know that this is not something that we can do in our own strength. We need to call on God daily on this thing. I'm going to invite Peter up. Peter, even though this is our 3rd meeting that we've done, Peter actually came up to do another prayer meeting. Came down to do another prayer meeting, and so he wasn't at our other two, so we didn't have a lot of practice getting Peter involved in this. But I want to, Peter Carlson, he's our statewide prayer coordinator. His job is to essentially recruit people to pray over this thing. And do you want to talk for just a moment about the importance of prayer? And then at the end, we're going to call Peter back up to actually lead us in a little prayer.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. For those of you that do have a bent toward prayer, I know that you already understand the significance that if we're trying to do something in our own strength versus what we can do with God's strength, it's night and day difference. And this is one of those battles that is going to require God's strength. The abortion system industry is well entrenched, and there has been so much shed blood that it is a huge spiritual issue. So the only way to combat that is through prayer. Now, those that maybe that's a little bit foreign to you, just bear with me a second. I'm not going to belabor that, but if we know the right way to do something, we use the right tool, then the job can get done. If we've got the wrong tool or the wrong knowledge and we misapply it, the job doesn't get done. And prayer is the tool that will make the difference. Yes, we need the volunteers. Yes, we've got to get the signatures turned in. Yes, there's a lot of physical work that needs done. But unless we do the spiritual work, we are wide open to the opposition that will prevent our success. So we have to undergird it in prayer. And if a person says, well, I'm just not a public kind of person to get out there and knock on my neighbor's doors, prayer is the answer perhaps for you, that you can say, I'm behind this. So whether you volunteer to help gather signatures or to pray or to do both, that's what we're looking for, is to build a team in agreement to attack this in a way that will be successful. And I'm confident that God wants us to do this. There's no question in my mind that He wants to stop the killing of the babies, and especially for us to fund that. So we get the chance to do that as we work together across the state, and I believe that this is the year that God's going to help us do that.
Scripture extended.
We have 3 scriptures that are sort of our theme verses, and I don't have the references off the top of my head.
Proverbs 31:8 is one of them. 31:8-9.
First Timothy 1:5.
Is to do everything in love. First
The
Timothy
goal of
1:5.
our instruction is love.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's First Timothy 1:5.
First Timothy. What was it, Proverbs?
So let me talk about the 1 Timothy 1:5. To do everything in love. Because this is a controversial issue, we can handle it one of 2 ways. We can confront people and create more controversy, or we can love people and win people. And that's our goal. Just like that scripture says, our goal is to do everything in love. And whether a person agrees with us or not is not the point. The point is, are we doing what God's called us to do? Are we out there championing a cause that's worth supporting? And are we doing it with the right attitude? So that's very key to what we're doing.
One quick thing I just want to mention before we move on. In a little bit, we're going to pass around this volunteer sign-up sheet, and there's a box at the bottom that says, I'm willing to pray regularly for this. So if you check that, that's going to be a cue for Peter when he sends out special prayer emails. So just a note. Okay, great. Cool. Thanks. Okay. I'm going to call Lee up next. Lee is one of our co-chief petitioners, and by the way, when we call ourselves chief petitioners, just what that means is there's really only 3 people in the state that can physically turn in signatures to the Secretary of State's office, and those are the chief petitioners. That's all it means. So Lee, myself, and a former state senator, her name is Marilyn Shannon. We're the 3 chief petitioners. So when you mail petition sheets to us at our PO box in Corvallis, we filter through them, we make sure they're right, and then Lee and I get to drive to Salem and deliver those. So anyway, that's what chief petitioner means. And Lee has a little bit to share on how this is kind of related to the spiritual foundation, or how this is just really more than politics.
Question. Just curious. Maybe like 2 or 3 people could tell me like the first things that kind of come to your mind when you hear the word inheritance.
Hear the what?
Inheritance.
Money.
Children, money. Anything else?
Somebody died.
Somebody died. All right, maybe we'll stick with children. I appreciate that. When I think about inheritance, I think about what are the generations that will be on the earth after I'm physically sort of, dead and gone, or at least in waiting. What is the culture that they're going to inherit? What's the atmosphere that's going to surround their lives? What is their normal going to be? And so, I mean, some of you guys in the room remember a different normal, growing up with a different normal than most children are growing up with today. And I kind of liken it to a game of whirlpool. When you get in the pool, and all not just kids, but even the adults too, you all start kind of like moving, running kind of in that like sort of direction along the sides of the pool, right? And eventually the current just starts to carry you. And then anybody else that gets in just kind of gets picked up in that current and swept along. So it's like we have a current that's in a similar way, like moving through like our culture, our society. And it really in people's minds, like the way that they value life, the way that they see relationships, they see gender. All these things are a normal that they inherit. And so one of the reasons that I chose to commit myself to this and to get involved in this is because I think it's a really significant way that I can, myself as an individual, invest in sort of transitioning that momentum of culture into a life-affirming direction. And also because I think majority of people, especially younger people that are, would call themselves pro-choice, really have no idea why they are. And I think the pro-abortion movement has been really successful, not only at getting young people to adopt this label of pro-choice, but also, and here's the most diabolical part, to get them to believe that it's their own unique idea. Because then, that's the point when they actually really defend it, because they're not just defending an idea, they're actually defending their own identity, who they are, what they stand for. So, I want to challenge that. I want people to question, why am I pro-choice? Like, why do I believe these things? Like, where did I get this stuff? And is it really true? Is it real? And I think that this has provided a platform and a really significant opportunity to kind of engage in dialogue. And I see it as like I'm engaging people at a heart level, really, is what I'm interested in. I want your signatures. I want to get this on the ballot. I want to change the culture of Oregon. But I also really want to invite people into that sort of like larger vision. It's not just a political stance. It's not just a Republican thing. But really I'm about what's the inheritance culturally that I'm passing on to future generations. And that's why I'm passionate about this. That's why I'm excited about it, along with a number of other reasons. But I want to invite you guys into that same reality with me, because I really believe that we're all called to play a significant role in redirecting culture. You know, salt and light, right? There's no abortion in heaven. It's very simple, like on earth as in heaven. That's my heart, you know, and I want to invite you guys into that reality too. And this is a really easy way that I can invest in this as an individual, because my mind is thinking about 5 generations away. And it's really important to me that they know that I was thinking about them when I decided how I was going to live my life and the things that I was investing in. And I really believe that that in and of itself will move the heart of God to pour out blessing upon our state. So I want to invite you guys into that spirit with me, you know, this movement with us. And here's a great way that you can invest. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. Okay, so moving on, let's talk a little bit about our strategy for success. And like I said before, I can talk a long, long time about a lot of details, but I don't want to bog you down with details. What I want to tell you is that we need local ownership of this thing. So as a grassroots movement, we need people in every community across the state owning this thing. This is their thing. I love when people start talking about this and they say, we need to do this, let's do this. They use we and our and let's, us do this, rather than you do that. It's your thing, it's your initiative. Like when you cross that line and start talking about we, then you've embraced it. Okay, so that's what we need people to do, to take local ownership. So what is a community? A community can be any group of people. So it could be a city, it could be Medford, it could be Trail, it could be Central Point, it could be a heart of a town, of a neighborhood. It could be a political group, a pro-life group, whatever. It's just a group of people that is your influence. Okay? Or it could be a church. So this is where you run, this is where the people that you know, and we need you to take the petition and get it in there. Okay? So you get their signatures and you talk with them, and you will find people who are excited about this, and then they'll want to take some signature sheets and kind of multiply the effort. Okay? So on our website, again, if you go Oregon2014.org, there's a link that says select your county. And you can also just click on the map. So here in Jackson County, if you click on it, you're going to see, where's Brian? There he is. You're going to see Brian Platt. Can you raise your hand, Brian? Okay. So Brian's the Medford area signature coordinator. He's got petition sheets. He's got a team of people. We're going to try to grow that tonight in terms of how you guys are working together. But you'll go there. You can see Brian's contact information. Something else you'll see. So here are the 3 counties that we visited in the last 2 days. Every county, first of all, has a signature goal. So I mentioned earlier we need 150,000 signatures to get this on the ballot. What we've done is divided the state, 36 counties, and set a goal for each county based upon the population of that county and how conservative that county is. Okay, so we looked at the voting history of the counties. So what that comes out to be, Jackson County, 10,300 signatures. Okay? Because you guys are pretty conservative down here, all right? you know, there are a couple counties in the state we did not bump up because of conservative levels. One of those is Multnomah, which is Portland, and one of them is Benton, which is Corvallis.
They really do.
Yes. Most of the counties, though, are you know, leaning conservative, but there's a couple that aren't. So anyway, we've raised the bar in some of the more conservative counties. 10,300 for Jackson. Something else I want to point out when we go to the page, you're going to see a little progress bar below the map. So we're updating the website every couple weeks with current information about how many signature sheets and petition signatures we received. Okay? So we want you to know how many signatures have been gathered already in Jackson County. And as the last time this was updated, there were 356 signatures in this county. Okay? So we've got time, but I want you to be watching that because we want you to be aware of where we're at, what the need is. Okay? Was there a question, sir? No. Okay, so one of the very, very best ways to get signatures for this petition is to go to your church, because there's a lot of friendly people to this issue at most churches, not all, but most. And here's how you do it. Number one, ask your pastor for permission. Okay? What you don't want to do is go to your pastor and say, there's this really great petition that's going around. Will you make sure everybody signs it? Okay? Your pastor is super busy, okay? And they don't need one more thing on their plate. What you need to do is say, I feel really passionate about this, and I want to organize something in our church. You give me permission to do that. Okay? So if your pastor trusts you and knows you, and this is not something that you know, the pastor cares about the sanctity of human life, most likely the answer is going to be yes. Okay? Now, if I was to pick up the phone and say, Pastor so-and-so at so-and-so church, will you find someone in your church to organize this? They'd say, who are you? Right? Okay? And we're going to get a lot of no's if we're kind of lobbying in from the outside trying to get churches involved. So what we need is the local body to raise up within the local fellowships. Okay? So we have this program, we're calling it Sign on Sunday. And Sign on Sunday, all that means is gathering signatures at your church, even if it's on a Saturday. Okay, so it's just a fancy name for gathering signatures at your church. There's no particular date or day. Some churches will choose to do like 4 Sundays in a row. They'll do like 4 weekends to make sure everybody is covered or is asked at least once. Some of them are doing it now. Some are going to wait until the fall. Some of them will be the late adopters and they'll do it like in the coming winter. But we're trying to build momentum on this right now. Oh, I did it again. Third time I've done it. So in a second, I'm going to show you a video. I need to fix this thing. Before I show you this video, if you talk to your pastor and it seems like they're dragging their feet a little bit, like, this isn't really an issue I want to talk about in the pulpit, like abortion, kind of like maybe people will leave the church if we start talking about this. There will be pastors that will respond that way. So based on our experiences last year, we had a lot of pastors who just said no, and I think a lot of the reason was because we were kind of coming in from the outside and asking about it rather than from the inside. So, but if you experience any pushback or feet dragging or whatever, that you think you need a little extra ammunition to get them paying attention, we created a couple videos for you. Okay, so I'm going to show one of those videos to you right now. What it is an interview with a man named Randy Alcorn. Is anybody familiar with who Randy Alcorn is? Okay, most people in this room. So Randy's written a lot of books, 30 or more, I don't know. Here's one of them, it's called Why ProLife. He's written a lot of fiction books, a lot of novels. He has a really great book called Heaven that has some really great reviews. We have books of his over the table. Everything on the table is free, so pick what you want. But I want to set up this video a little bit real quick. So Randy, he's got an amazing story. He's a really cool guy. About 22, 24 years ago, or it was the early 80s, Randy was involved in some peaceful protesting outside of an abortion clinic in Portland. He was with a group of people. There was a lawsuit against him and the group of people. I think it was $8 million that was handed against them as a judgment. Okay, so they got they lost. Okay, in this lawsuit. Randy had recently, before then, started a church in the Portland area. It's called Good Shepherd. It's thriving today. It's an excellent church. Last year they turned in over 1,000 signatures, just one church. Okay, so but at that point, Randy was on staff with this church. He had just got it going. He was on staff. He was on payroll, and because of this judgment that was handed against him, they were going to start garnishing his wages, okay, as a pastor of the church. And so before they could do that, he resigned his post as a paid staff pastor. And for the last 20 plus years, he's been making minimum wage. Because if he makes more than minimum wage, the abortion clinic can start garnishing his wages. Okay? So here we have a guy who is living and walking the walk. Okay? For over 2 decades, he has written, like I said, dozens of books. He's donated 100% of his royalties to other ministries. Over $5 million he's donated. Okay? So this is a cool guy. And we did a short interview. We asked him some questions. The video clips are only 2.5 minutes long each, so really easy to digest. I'm going to show you the first one, and then I'm going to send you an email if you're on our email list, or you can get on it tonight, and I'll send you an email with links so you can watch those and share with your pastors in the next few days. So let's watch this video.
As someone who understands the sensitivities around which issues to address from the pulpit, what makes you think that this issue, the effort to stop taxpayer funding for abortion, why do you address this from the pulpit?
Well, first, I truly do sympathize with pastors, I used to be one of them, who are overrun with other people's vision of what you're supposed to do. So I used to be given videos. In those days they weren't DVDs, but old VHS. And I was given these videos. Oh, you've got to watch this. Pastor, you got to watch this movie and endorse this movie, and you've got to talk about this cause from the pulpit.
Great.
And we've got anti-pornography stuff. We've got pro this and anti that. And after a while, as a pastor, you say, look, I'm here to follow the Lord, lead these people, teach the Word of God, and I can't follow everybody else's agenda. But, having said, as pastors, I believe we have got to sort out what is truly secondary from what is primary. But when it comes to what Scripture says about the abortion issue and helping any needy person, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, defend the rights of the poor and needy, that is a consistent theme. It's for widows, for orphans, those who are husbandless, those who are fatherless. And who does that best describe except women who are vulnerable to abortion and the children who die from abortion? So there, I think, pastors need to step up and say, that is not secondary, that is primary. That has no conflict with preaching the gospel. That's part of living out the gospel. So I need to give attention to this issue.
Okay, so then some information about, we need 150,000 signatures. We're still building out some of this information on our website, but in the next couple days, we're going to have lots of great resources for churches, including downloadable bulletin inserts, pastor talking points, because really the very best way that you can get your pastor involved after getting his permission is to get him to say something from the pulpit about this. Like, we're collecting signatures after service today and for the next 3 Sundays. Okay, so if you can get that, you're going to get people lining up at your table to sign the petition. So anyway, like I mentioned, there's two videos. You actually can go and watch these right now at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/stopthefunding. And I will be sending an email in the next couple days that provides a link to these that you can forward to your pastor. So, okay, that's a question. Did you have a question, Robert?
No, but let me have you share the bulletin to the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have one that's we've been sharing too. It just isn't posted to our website yet.
I'm really short because they really.
Yeah. Okay. Can you email it to me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just to recap about how to do sign-on Sunday. First of all, ask your pastor. Second of all, pick the dates. Once you get a date, that's usually the hardest thing to do, right? You get a nail down and now it's real and you can start planning. And then just get a few friends to help. You don't need to be complicated about this. You can station people at the entrances of the church. You can have a table. But you don't need to worry. I mean, you can get some signs or have some of those. But really, if you can have someone speak from the pulpit and just direct people to them, to you, that's going to make your life a lot easier. But getting friends to help is a big part of that.